gotta put in the effort, man. I'm trying to tell my students that about their fractions and whatnot, man. It's like, yeah, you're not good at it, but a little bit every day make you a whole lot better. Might not be the best in the world. I'll never be the best in the world. I was so trash. Just like my students be with some of the topics. That's just life. You're a baby at something all the time until you put in some work, man. Do what it takes to grow. One day I will be really good at this game. I'm gonna be real good one day. And now I'm just a baby still, man. But I do like the motto: hard work and consistency. Hard work and consistency. Best students in Fortnite. I had to say best. Best? Hard to say. Most. It's kind of hard to say. Their styles are so different. Everybody's style of play is so different. But the most technical player that I see probably bothers me the most when I play them 1v1 is probably one of my students named Ariel. Ariel has like a little kid's sweatiness about itself. Real fast reaction times, constant movement. Most of the kids that I play, I'm better than. So it's hard for me to say who's the best. But he's definitely better than me. So I guess I have to give it to him. Now, his brother is really good too. But I don't play with him as much anymore. So I don't know if YG still got the skills. I don't know. He might be out here slacking. His brother might be getting better than him. So I can't tell. I don't know who got it. But Ariel is very, very good. Oh my God. And I didn't mean to call you Ariel. I meant to say Ariel from the jump. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? I know you're real sensitive about that. I know you're not the Little Mermaid. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's play the game. Settings, my settings. Well, settings. My settings. My settings are your settings. My settings. Well, I guess I can show off my settings. I use a scuff controller. I only use one paddle, but I do use my side buttons. And here are my settings. So, because of the type of controller I use, my settings won't be the same as what you would need for like a regular DualShock, but they will be close. Okay, so speaking of controller, for some reason my controller just like randomly went off. It's probably my USB cord. This thing is a pain about the USB cord. I'm gonna do a review on this stuff one day, because there are things that do suck about this controller. But so the settings. Here are my settings. I want to gradually turn up my sensitivity multiplier on my builds and my edit mode. I know a lot of people have that really high. And I have it where I can be controlled. You know, I don't misplace a lot of pieces. So 1.6, 1.7, I mean, you want that to be around 1.8 and 2.0, to be honest. Both of those. Yeah, you want those to be about 1.8 and 2.0, but you got to work up to that. You can't just jump out the gate. Look horizontal. So I just bumped that up actually a couple percentages since the last update, because I feel like there's more slowdown, but it's not as sticky. So I want to be able to adjust. I have no dead zone basically, so I can make these really small micro adjustments after a flick. So I'm taking advantage, full advantage of the slowdown. I have enough speed to pop across screen, but I'm not on a very high sensitivity at all. In my opinion, it's not a good idea to play on a high sense unless you're playing the game in a way where your aim assist tracking is just amazing. Or you have just really, really good hand-eye coordination. You know, I can't tell you how to play the game, but I like to use a moderate sense. And you can see those green bars. Those green bars always represent like a average, or not an average, but like a default. Right? So anything above or below represents, you know, I mean, kind of like going away from the median or from what the typical norm should be. I guess that's what that threshold is. I would assume based on how it's positioned here, like with the look dampening time. I know for a fact that 0.2 seconds is very optimal for look dampening time. Now, you want to be able to bring that down a little bit over time, but it does help significantly with your aim when you're in somebody's box. So I'm actually going to take this down just a notch. I'm going to start working it down to about 0.15. I've done a lot of research on these. I've done a lot of research on all of these controller options. So I know a lot about them and like how it affects your gameplay. ADS look horizontal speed. So the ADS, it just needs to be low in general. You can take it really, really low, because like those, that rotate on to target isn't there anymore. So it's really important to have like a steady aim from distance and to kind of be able to handle any recoil that you may get, right? So I have that really low, and with a little boost, of course. With all of these, pretty much you need a little boost. I need to look into my boost with my look stick, because it helps to provide a slight delay in the way that you move. This one in particular. Well, actually, when it comes to turning, because it's your look stick. I mean, your move stick, I think. Hold on, let me make sure I'm talking. It's the look stick. So, this is like, you're looking around, you're looking for a target, right? And if it's on 0, then you start turning instantly, or you start like in that direction, the horizontal or vertical, whatever direction you move your stick. When you have it on 0 seconds, you move instantly. I'm gonna add a little bit of boost because what this does is if like okay, let's say you have an opponent on your box and they're like a little bit behind you. So you flick around, right? But then as you're flicking around or as you kind of go to make that flick, they jump to kind of go up above you where you can make an adjustment instead of going all the way to the side and kind of turning full left or full right. You would then kind of diagonal between up and whatever direction you're going, so your stick would kind of curve upwards in its direction, right? That's an adjustment that you have to make. Well, you have 0.1 seconds to make that adjustment as they jump. Instead of doing a full 180 and shooting them eye level, right? Now they've jumped, they're up. So when you have that ramp time, as soon as you put in the input to turn around, it starts turning. Unless you have ramp time, which gives it a slight delay that gives you time to react to whatever they're doing before your stick is fully deflected, which means that it's rotating back around at full speed, right? So it takes 0.1 seconds before the stick just flicks around, which is a very, very small amount of time. And this allows you to then change direction and make an adjustment as you're turning around because your stick isn't moving so fast, right? When you first start the movement, that you're able to notice what happens probably in 0.1 seconds, right? And then kind of flick in the other direction. So you want to have a little boost. You want to have boost in your aim down sight for sure, because when you're hitting multiple targets, right, you're making a quick adjustment when people are jumping around from distance. You're making micro adjustments as they move. So it's good to have some significant boost there. And ramp time so that it doesn't just go willy-nilly. It gives you, you get that precision. You get to make those small adjustments, but you get to be bold and kind of fully deflect your stick in order to make these 180s and things like that, because you are gonna have a small fraction of time. It's gonna give your brain enough time to adjust to what you're doing on the controller and hit your shot. Now that was a very thorough explanation, if I might say so myself, of what that does. And I know that 90% of you have no idea what these things mean. What's vertical boost? What's horizontal boost? What's ramp time? Well, you know now. So, don't just watch somebody's video about their dead zones and stuff like that and then apply it to yours. When people have different types of controllers with manufacturing issues and they've adjusted to this and that and blah blah blah. If you really do some research, you learn a whole lot about this stuff. For my scholars, there's a job for you in this field. So, dead zones. What's up with the dead zones, right? So if you're playing with a bum controller, like a DualShock or a, regular Xbox One Series controller, well, dead zones don't really matter for you, because you can't make your dead zone small enough for it to give you any type of significant advantage anyway. See, the dead zone is just an area around the stick that you don't get input from, because of the way that an analog stick is made. This is absolutely necessary, or your character is going to move without you touching the stick. Well, most controllers, all controllers, are built with dead zones naturally in the controller. So when you buy the controller at first, typically, you don't need to use the dead zone in your game settings, because the dead zone that the controller has already is good enough for your input to not cause you to drift. So drifting is like when you're not touching the computer but the character is moving, or their look
view is changing, right? Either of those things can happen because of the build of the analog stick, and dead zones prevent that from happening. So when you move, you know, it covers the analog stick. You're able to cover significant angles in short amounts of movement. So having a dead zone doesn't prevent you from having quick reaction and this, that, and the other. So the dead zones aren't gonna kill you. But if you have a really good controller, then the dead zones in your controller, you know, the little 20% dead zone or whatever they use factory, is probably going to be good enough for you to minimize whatever dead zone you use in the game, which means that your stick input is more, you know, direct. It's like more responsive because there's less space around the stick that doesn't create movement with your character. You know, in addition to your boost ramping times and vertical boost, right? Um, Dead Zone kind of works hand in hand with those things to create precision, to make it really easy for you to find a space that fits your natural hand-eye coordination and just your normal way of doing things instead of you having to constantly adjust to this game, right? You want to find a way that makes these settings fit you. When you go to practice your settings, you want to do things like track targets. If you're ahead of the target, then you probably have a sensitivity that's too high. If you're lagging behind your target in general, then you probably need to turn your sensitivity up a little bit, right? So it's all about understanding what these things do and how that equates to gameplay. And you can only do that by going into places to shoot, going to aim trainers, which I do from time to time, and shooting non-stop until your hands hurt and seeing for yourself, you know, how your tracking is working for you. You know, it's usually it's not you needing to get adjusted to whatever you put here in these settings. It's usually finding settings that work for you and then sticking to them forever. Alright. So, as you can see, I play exponential with 100% aim assist strength unless I'm 1v1ing one of these kids from my school. I turn my aim assist down because I like to practice. And I'm usually typically like so much better that I don't need my full aim assist. I learned that a long time ago. So I did that. It starts making for really, really good practice. And for some reason, headshots are better at about 95% aim assist. For some reason. I think that's improved because the reticle is less sticky and more dragging as you go across target. But I need to experiment with that. So that's everything that goes into kind of putting it together as far as your settings. Now, foot controller is something that you don't have, so don't listen to people talking about turning it on and putting it on certain percentages. A foot controller is an actual device, and enabling the foot controller allows you to do something like what I do with my scuff with the back paddle, right? I can use the foot controller to press buttons. There is actually a certain thing as a foot controller. Hilarious. I wonder if PC players are into the foot mouse. Foot mouse himself. Foot mouse. Foot mice. Whoa. Okay, so is that it? Is that all that needs to be said about settings? Of course, auto run for the pro, build immediately. I minimize my edit hold time because I use L3 to edit, so I don't need to hold it. If I press that button, then I'm trying to edit and I have a different button to bring up my builds. That is my S2 button, or my, what is this, the right side button. My left side button is changing material, and I use my right back paddle for jumping. My other paddles I don't really use much, but my left back paddle is to pick up. My inside back right paddle is my pickaxe, and my inside left paddle is my menu for inventory. I don't use the control pad because I accidentally press it when I'm pressing square. So I use the right D-pad for menu. I mean for map. Edit is L3. Crouch R3. And that's it. Everything else is default. And there are the settings. Yeah, that way. This video is too long at 30 minutes, so I'm gonna cut this one. And then I'm gonna get into the game.